So, hello, good evening, everyone. And today we are going to discuss about air pollution and why it is more than just a science problem. I'm Manisha, and I am currently teaching at Azim Premji University. And my area of specialization is air pollution, atmospheric chemistry, episodic pollution in India, and different parts of South and Southeast Asia. So my area of research also related to different aspects of air pollution, which is atmospheric chemistry, like source apportionment, air quality management, long range transport of pollution, regional dispersion of pollutants, and all these things. And basically today I am here to talk about the pollution, which is, of course, we explore it as a science, but why it is more than just a science problem. So I would like to start with my slides. Okay. Yeah. So starting with some of the historical aspect. So what historical aspect here is that air pollution has always been there. Probably it's not a new thing, and it is trending a lot right now in news and everywhere you are seeing, especially in context of India being the most polluted. We are having the most polluted city around the world, which is Delhi, or sometimes Mexico and other cities also come, but Delhi always on the prime location in the list. So just going to a bit towards the historical side, that air pollution has been there in a long time, and very long back. Even the Roman philosopher has also mentioned in his book around in 61 AD, and basically those mentions used to come whenever there were a big explosion or volcanic explosion kind of event used to happen. But when slowly the humans started to evolve more in terms of science, in terms of technologies, a lot of other things, we started to expand the industries. And industries, as we know, the one of the major reasons of the rising CO2 emissions and major factor causing the climate change, they are also one of the major factor causing the air pollution. So what happened that rising CO2 somewhere caused the increase in global temperature, and more greenhouse gases led to the temperature of our environment around 2 degrees centigrade more heated. The uh, the problems related to air pollution mainly started after 1950s, when there was excessive use of coal combustion already happened in industry, mainly in US and the European countries. And then we witnessed one of the greatest historical event and severe event in terms of air pollution, which was the Great London Smog. Because industries were using so much coal, there was a thick layer of smog which appeared around in December month, from around 5th December to 9th December. The around 5th December to 9th December, and basically during that time the thick smog or the haze was so much severe that people were not even able to look at their own feet. The visibility was so low, they were not able to recognize each other. And now, because of this much high level of pollution, there were around 12,000 premature deaths, or even more. There were like around 4,000 deaths which were recognized immediately, and more than 1 million people reported respiratory diseases. Many of the books has also have written about it, that during the pollution there was so much criminal crime activities also. People were actually, there was a robbery incidents, there were the killing incidents, because people were not able to even recognize the especially the risk around them because of the so much severe haze, which we also witnessed recently in Delhi as well through different newspapers. So, in 1952, when such a severe incident happened, after that, to combat the air pollution, the British government brought the Clean Air Act, which was in 1956. And this Clean Air Act somewhere enforced certain rules and regulation for industries where they need to control their pollution levels, and they need to install certain devices which actually reduce the emission at a very lower level. So somewhere this was very important, and yes, it's not visible. Okay, so yes, so my yeah, there was some problem. So yes, so over time, the London brought down its pollution level much more lower level, and this happened because of the certain rules and regulations which were enforced, and then it came back to the safer limits. Okay, so and after that we also witnessed many other pollution episodes also, which were in Los Angeles. Also there was a severe kind of smog which caused the severe respiratory issues in Donora. And then one of the major problems which happened because of the pollution was the acid rain, where the rain was acidic. It has the sulfuric acid, nitric acid, which happened around 1970s, especially in the European countries. In India, the trigger came because of the Bhopal gas tragedy. So Bhopal gas tragedy, one of the major reason of bringing the Environmental Pollution Act, which passed in 1986 and which has a lot of regulations related to air pollution. And the recent one, Delhi's air pollution, which was compared with the 1952 smog, it was that severe. So what is the content of this pollution? We need to first understand that what is the content of these pollutions. So for example, you can see that how much reduced visibility we had. So it was called as Delhi's dark clouds, and there was so much news. We were like flooded with the news where Delhi's pollution is breaking the AQI index. There was like even much more safe, like 100 times above the safer limit. And it is true, it's not hyped. It is based on the regular monitoring done by scientists, many researchers around Delhi. So they are continuously witnessing this, and it is actually happening. So you can see once it rains, of course, everything gets washed away, and then you see the clean atmosphere. And the moment post monsoon monsoon stubble burning, basically, which comes from the northwestern region, the moment it comes, it starts to get hazy, and then there is a trigger from the firecracker burning around the same time, which happens because of the festival pollution. So it just causes a trigger, but Delhi already gets so much pollution because of its own domestic pollution, and then at the same time the stubble burning. So stubble burning is not something which is like even farmers do deliberately. There is a compulsion on them also. So probably we will see this through feedback loops further. So what is a clean air? Here comes the question: what we see before after rain, which is a very clear atmosphere, what it contains. So first we need to understand that. So clean air is nothing. There is a natural composition of air, basically, which existed for thousands of years based on the permafrost and bubble based measurements. It was found that for a very long time our atmospheric composition was like this, where 78% was nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and mostly argon, helium, neon, other kind of gases, and carbon dioxide's percentage was around like zero point 0.3, and based on which is around around 300 parts per million. Consider it as a millionth part, and out of million parts, it had like around 300 parts of CO2. But as it started rising, actually it caused the change in the atmospheric composition, and which has caused the increase in greenhouse gases, CO2, which is a greenhouse gases, and then the climate change, the warming which has happened. After that, when we come down to the other atmospheric gases, are different gases, and which includes ozone or carbon monoxide, SO2, NO2, ammonia, other different kind of gases. But the moment they cross the safe limit, basically for in terms of human health, the moment they cross the safe limit, they become a pollutant. Okay, so basically there are different kind of pollutants which cross their safe limit. For example, there are different the pollutants which are categorized based on the primary pollutants and secondary pollutants. Okay, primary means the pollutants which are directly emitted from the source. For example, if you are burning coal somewhere, or you are burning the wood somewhere, the pollutants which are directly emitting from that is called as the primary pollutant. There are also secondary pollutants. So once it is emitted within the atmosphere, now they react with each other. Okay, so once they react with each other, what they do, like there is a formation of secondary pollutant. So secondary pollutants in the recent news is also, you can see in when it comes to Delhi's news, it's very popular that secondary pollutants are increasing in the atmosphere. So secondary pollutants are also a big problem, but ultimately they are dependent on the primary pollutants. So how much we are emitting, and then they are forming in the atmosphere. And secondary pollutants have very high lifetime in the atmosphere, so they affect more our environment as well as health. And based on the chemical state also, we have gaseous pollutants and we have particulate pollutants. So there are certain pollutants which are categorized by US EPA as criteria pollutants. Okay, so criteria pollutants are nothing but the pollutants which cause severe environmental issues. They are responsible for the smog, which you just saw London smog, or the Los Angeles smog, or acid rain, or serious health issues. Like even a slight change in their like a threshold level can cause immediate health impacts. So they all have a certain threshold, and these six criteria pollutants basically include nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, ozone, lead, and particulate matter. So basically, for example, here you can see ozone is one, which is a tropospheric ozone. So ozone, we hear about we hear a lot about ozone, okay, because ozone is as a ozone layer, but we also have ozone on the ground, okay, which is formed through atmospheric process. And ozone also has a certain limit. Of the moment it crosses its limit, actually it causes severe health issues. It also causes the maybe crop also causes crop reduction in crop production. So there are certain studies by ISER Mohali and other universities which have clearly proven that after a certain concentration, there is around 40% or 30% reduction in the crop production the moment it increases. Again, its formation is dependent on the primary pollutant, which is the nitrogen dioxide or sulfur dioxide. And similarly, carbon monoxide, which is hugely emitted from the vehicles. And it is many a times it has 1 hour, 1 hour threshold, like within 1 hour, it should not cross a certain concentration. And the moment it crosses, people start getting the breathing difficulty, or there are multiple issues in their like breathing system, cardiovascular system. So these pollutants are much more prominent when it comes to serious health issues. Lead was also one of the major problems, but after 1994, there was a continuous reduction for lead, basically through the leaded gasoline. So there was a stepwise phasing of the lead, and slowly actually leaded gasoline was phased out, and now we don't have much of the lead related problem. But one of the major problem which we see everywhere is the particulate matter. Okay, so particulate matter and all the studies around the world which shows that okay, PM atmospheric pollution is causing severe health issues. Everything is based on the particulate matter. Particulate matter is, you need to imagine it as a particles in the atmosphere. And what is the size of these particles? It depends on the from which source it is generated. For example, you can imagine sand particles as something, a particle which is of a size of 90 micrometer. Okay, and then you have the hair thickness, which is around 50 to 70 micrometer. Then comes a PM 2.5, PM10, which is like when you divide this hair into 10 equal parts in a diameter, you get one part as a PM10. And the moment you divide even PM10 into four equal parts, it is called as PM 2.5. And PM 2.5 is something which is deadliest among the all the pollutants. So any particles which have size even less comes at 0.5. And all the studies around the world are actually related to PM 2.5. So you can see in this figure here that mostly PM10 is something which actually can be reduced, can be stopped by our upper respiratory tract. But when it comes to PM 2.5 or the particles which are even one micrometer, like you can imagine how tiny it can be, but it can reach up till our cardiovascular system, or like even transfer from the our lungs alveoli to the blood system. So these fine particles mostly are combustion generated particles. You can see that this is very common to see around the trash burning. The particles which are emitted from the trash burning, or particles which are emitted from the coal burning. Okay, particles which are emitted from industries, so something which look like smoke, and you see the particle, those particles are actually so tiny that it can reach deeper into our blood system. But when it comes to PM10, it is mostly stopped by our upper respiratory tract, but it is emitted mostly from the natural sources. So when we say, okay, the some place has more dust, dust is mostly inert and not causing much of the problem, and it can be stopped by our upper respiratory system. Or the bioaerosols, mostly we get allergy because of that, or pollens, we get allergic issues because of that, because those particles are relatively larger in size, and that doesn't cause much of the problem. So main problem is the combustion generated part, which are from the vehicles, industries, firecrackers, the biomass, stubble burning, cigarette smoking, and all those activities which cause the increase of PM 2.5 in our atmosphere. So there are multiple sources of pollutants. So it's not like only the like we are causing. There are natural sources as well. Sometimes even wildfires, also which are natural because of the extreme heating or changing climate, actually cause the huge emission of the pollutants in our atmosphere. But again, that is event basis and rarely happening thing, or maybe twice, like somewhere in at some location around the world. But when it comes to vehicular emission, industries, where biomass, or the waste burning, this is happening at such a local scale that it is going to affect us a lot, our health system, our day-to-day life, everything is being affected because of such kind of pollution. So more than natural, somewhere anthropogenic the scale of impact is much higher for the anthropogenic sources. Similarly, what we just talked about is about the outdoor pollution. Now we also have the indoor pollution. There are indoor pollution which is caused by, for example, one thing is the infiltration, because in India specifically the outdoors are itself so much polluted that it automatically get infiltrated through our windows, through our like doors or daily movement and a lot of things. Somewhere it affects our indoors also, no matter how much we try to close it, or the once the outdoor is polluted, it easily gets diffused into the indoor conditions as well. There are many people around, many places around us, or especially in the rural areas, where still people are using the chulhas, and this is something which is directly going to affect our respiratory system, and that is the reason women are at the worst part of the air pollution, worst receiving part, because especially in the rural areas, they continue to inhale a lot of pollutants because of this open chulha cooking. Then we have continuous dust within the houses. There are multiple sprays as well, even the sprays which are like sanitizers or like the room fresheners. There are certain kind of VOCs or certain kind of volatile fumes which actually directly cause harmful impact in our, or many at times we just think that it is like an allergy, but it is like a reaction of our body from for a particular chemical. Okay, so there are different kind of chemicals which cause these kind of issues to us, and these sources are in indoors as well and outdoors as well, and through understanding of these only we can help us ourselves or people around us to reduce the exposure. So you can see what level of problems it causes. Air pollution, imagine, can cause the neurodevelopmental issues, basically the PM 2.5, which has many at times the different kind of metals which causes problem in our brain, in our neurodevelopmental issues. It can cause the cognitive and behavioral issues, skin aging, respiratory diseases, cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, which has been strongly linked with the areas which has very high air pollution, and then the people around. The pattern is very close, that as the pollution is rising, somewhere type 2 diabetes is also, the incidence of type 2 diabetes is also rising. Then premature and low birth. So there are basically few studies from London which has been published recently. They have shown that even the particles which are in the atmosphere, harmful particles, black carbon particles, it has been seen in the placenta of the women in the through microscope, and people have realized that how important it is for a pregnant woman to stay in the pollution free environment, because it can cause low birth weight. At the same time, it can cause miscarriage, it can cause the developmental issues. So it is affecting now. Imagine the women at the worst receiving age, and at the same time their their exposure is also causing harm to the future generations through the problems in through birth defects. So again, and there are cancers. Long term exposure can cause the respiratory cancers, lung cancers, kidney disease, and all these things are being affected because of the air pollution. So in India, when it comes to guidelines, we have the air pollution guidelines, as well as we have the air quality standards. Initially, in 1982, air pollution standards were only for SO2, NO2, or certain gases or particles. But slowly, we had to revise our air quality standards because of the exposure of people, and the how these pollutants at after a certain level were affecting people, especially health related issues were coming up. After that, we have revised guidelines, and now we have certain around 12 pollutants which are given in CPCB website. If you go that how much threshold we should have for residential areas, for industrial areas, for different parts, and then how and daily you can see the daily air quality concentration or index, that how much it is crossing from the threshold limit. Okay, so our day-to-day activities, or many times we ignore these things, but this is one of the very important thing to important issue to take care for your health, to prevent any long-term health issues. So why we say it is like, though we know so much about air pollution, we know the scientific issues related to it. We know that okay, air particles are emitted from the combustion, particles emitted from the dust, from road dust, from vehicles and different parts. But actually, uh, we are still facing it a big problem. So, do you like somewhere science is not lagging behind, but there are multiple levels at which we need to work when it comes to air pollution, and it is not an episodic issue. It is a consistent, and as per my experience, I'm hearing about this air pollution issues in North India, maybe after since 2010. There was continuous news every winters, every post monsoon, that there is a pollution problem. So, and then there is a persistent deterioration despite scientific evidences which has been provided by monitoring, measurement, through different evidences from the health perspective, from the visibility, from the economic loss perspective. But still, we are facing this challenge. So it is basically the major challenges is not alone the science, it is also the interaction between social, environmental, economical and institutional systems that extend beyond administrative boundaries. So what we need is like awareness and integration of all the stakeholders. So what are the key issues here are the feedback loops. So one of the very famous example of feedback loops is northwestern stubble burning. Every year stubble burning happens, but even for the farmers, they don't have option. They need to burn their stubble within a window of. They need to get rid of their stubble within a window of 10 to 15 days, and it has started long back in like around the time of green revolution. This whole problem is started. The tracing of the problem, if you go, is embedded in the green revolution. Why? Because Punjab, Haryana region, this northwestern, they were never ready for this much water usage, especially for the crop production and wheat, especially wheat and rice. Wheat and rice. Basically, the wheat one is which is again along with wheat and rice. They are high water intensive crops, and what happens that over the time, because of the more usage of the water, the groundwater got reduced. And then in 2009, there was a rule which came out that farmers, especially in post monsoon season, now cannot use the groundwater, and then they need to be dependent on the natural rainwater. And to get that rainwater on time, they need to sow their wheat crops within the weather's window, like the seasonal window. And that seasonal window come in at a time when whole North India goes through a stable atmospheric conditions. Stable atmospheric conditions means where there's a very less mixing of the atmosphere, there are no turbulences, no dispersion. And then what happens that whatever stubble they get rid of through burning, actually the pollutants stay in the lower level of especially close to the ground, and the pollutants remain hanged in the close to the ground for 10 to 15 days, and it is very, very long time to get to show the severe health issues. And that actually somewhere, because of the geographical condition around Delhi and especially in North India, it remains there for a very long time. So there is a continuous societal change, and there is a change in the pattern. There is continuous cropping pattern change, and ultimately everything got linked to today's this huge problem, which is related, which is actually air pollution. So there are feedback loops continuous because of certain things. There are more issues, environmental issues. Then we take some regulations to safeguards this, and then there are one more issue which comes up. So we need to take like every laws or regulation in a whole systematic form, like in a whole systematic form, by keeping by considering every factors within that system. Then comes the non-linearity. Why it is still a problem? Because there is a non-linearity when it comes to sources. Maybe Delhi and Bangalore, or maybe Delhi and North India and South India, despite having similar kind of emission, there is a possibility that southern cities have less pollution and northern cities have more pollution, because there is a non-linearity when it comes to the emission and then the air quality. What happens that because of the atmospheric condition or more turbulence or maybe more rain, there is a possibility that same kind of emission is causing more pollution in northern part of India, and the same kind of sources causing are not at all showing up in the southern part because of the rains or atmospheric dispersion. So there's a non-linearity in the sources or the factors which are causing the air pollution. Okay, so there are weather factors, there are the topographical issues, there are geographical conditions, a lot multiple factors are which actually cause this kind of non-linearity in the system. And then comes the scale mismatch, the local action and regional impact. So even if today Delhi, even if we tries to control its pollution, or even the whole Indo-Gangetic plain tries to control its pollution a lot, but it needs whole regional cooperation. So every area needs local action to control the regional impact, to especially have a regional impact to bring down the air quality, or like improve the air quality specifically. So there are scale mismatches. Maybe at certain areas they are trying good practices, but other areas, if they are not trying, definitely the whole region is, because atmosphere knows no boundaries, so whole region will get equally polluted. So now, so how, what is the linkages of air pollution with climate change and health? So if you see health risk as a main issue, or you keep it as a prime location, there are multiple functions of it. There is climate which is affecting it, there is socio-economic processes which is affecting it, and then you have health risk which is related to the extreme heat, air pollution events, and then indoor outdoor air pollution, and then adaptive capacity of that environment. Basically, adaptive capacity is nothing but that what is the carrying capacity of that location. After the moment it crosses that threshold, it starts to show up as a pollutants. Also, there are more urbanization, change in the energy system. There are more use of the coal and different building practices, land use. For example, the suburban areas, rapidly growing suburban areas, which have more pollution as compared to the already well-developed urban societies. So somewhere all these are interlinked. Okay, the socio-economic processes and the climate, the changing, for example, natural disasters probably caused by the extreme event, for example, floods or heat waves, and then ultimately it causes a trigger for the air pollution. Okay, so these all remains interlinked. So we need intervention in the system at multiple levels. We need intervention at local and individual levels. So, for example, if you regularly witness the trash burning around your area, definitely there is a need of collective effort to minimize it, or there is a need of collective effort to transform for the eco-friendly vehicles, or the options which can be chosen by at individual level. Like if we go for a eco-friendly transportation, so all those things, or we go local, for example, buying local stuff instead of traveling far for other places, so minimizing our own emission or our locality's emission. And if every individual is aware of their action, definitely this intervention is going to help us. But again, this is a transnational, it needs a transregional and interstate cooperation. So when we say airshed based management, airshed is nothing but one whole area which is sharing a similar kind of air. For example, there can be a proper management plan for the airshed in the northwestern part of India, or maybe airshed in the eastern part of India, or the southern. So we need a whole regional based airshed based management and coordinated actions. Many at times it is when it comes to pollution policy makers, they also suggest for even the cross boundary cross country boundary cooperation, because probably there is a possibility that if Indo-Gangetic plain in India have more pollution, it is going to cause severe impact in Bangladesh. Or maybe there are more pollution activity in Pakistan, definitely it is going to cross the border and affect our northwestern states. So it needs a proper regional cooperation. And then comes the strengthening research and development. And India, which is always among the top in terms of most polluted city, we have least GDP percentage which has been invested in research and development related to pollution. So we need to strengthen that. There is still need of science. We continue to need the science for monitoring, measurement, new emerging pollutants. For example, in the recent studies which are showing we have microplastics in the environment. Okay, our novel entities which are coming in our environment. So we need continuous strengthening of the research and development. For example, I just explained a study where it is shown that human placenta have the pollutants particles in their placenta, but we don't have enough hospitalization of women data and relate it with the PM 2.5. So there is also a lack of data in our, especially in our country, which also need to be strengthened. And then integrated policy and planning, integrating this whole system, whether our government stakeholders and people who are actually taking care of industries, regulations, and trying and making sure that every party is following the stringent regulations, are especially when it comes to air pollution, where we are lagging behind. So despite so many awareness around it, we are still facing the severe issues because there are huge gaps when it comes to implementation as well on ground. So in conclusion, we can say that air pollution is an emergent outcome of social environmental systems. We need awareness at a very strong level, at a very deep level in our society to to especially reduce our air pollution exposure. Otherwise, we continue to get the severe impacts caused by the pollution, and many at times it is not even recognized that it happened because of the pollution, but later through latest study, we get to know that okay, certain problems has happened because of the long-term exposure or living in an area where the pollution level was much higher. And then there are continuous we need continuous a multi-level action plan, and we need to integrate all these things together. So when we talk about so much air pollution and awareness and all these things, where we come, especially where the science come, or where we need people who know more about this and contribute for these issues, especially in environmental issues, climate change issues, or pollution issues. So here I would like to mention that especially about Azim Premji University and our master's program. And one of the very interesting master's program we have is on masters in climate change and sustainability, where where we actually face the real world issues. We present the real world issues and how you can tackle it. So we have multiple problems, and then different kind of courses which has been introduced. Problems has been introduced in courses, and then what are the possible ways to mitigate those problems. So we have also at UG level the bachelor courses in different for in different science streams, but also we have one of the major one is environmental science and sustainability, which mainly focuses on the environmental issues, social issues, and then scientific issues, all those things, and then how we see it in a whole system. Okay, and connect with the society through these degree courses. So we have BSc, which is our 4-year program. You can go through website, you can check there that we have different disciplinary majors, and then occupational minors, common curriculum, flexible credit at Azim Premji University. There are and there are variety of courses like understanding India apart from majors, the creative reading, writing, which actually helps a person to grow more in a broader way apart from just doing the disciplinary major. So our MSc climate change, you can see here, is both 1 year and 2 year. You can do 1 year, if you have 4-year degree, you can do 1 year masters, and if you have 3 years degree, you can go for the 2 years masters, along with where 1 year is coursework, and the second year will be called will be internship will be accounted in the second year. And this is basically the skill based program. So in every course, whether you see here in different courses, renewable energy transitions, research methods, LCA, there are GIS technologies, there are quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis. Every course here is skill based. So in every program, you get your skills, and there are multiple career opportunities, especially in current times when it comes to environment and climate change and sustainability. Why? Because we need people around us who are climate policy analysts, sustainability consultant, or environmental scientists. There are multiple NGOs which are working towards it, and actually give everyone a really good platform to work for our society. At the same time, get real good job opportunity. So you can always join us if you have any question related to this master's program related to climate change, where we read all those environmental issues. You can always write to us through info.sccs@apuedu.in. So here I would like to wrap up my talk. Thank you so much for your attention, and I can take a few questions here. Okay, let me check a few questions. Okay, so wait, okay. Okay, so there is a question on biofuel. So is it okay to go with biofuel? But currently India is developing country and we cannot invest in biofuel. It may affect on India's GDP. So biofuel is one of the really good alternative when it comes to for industrial purposes or basically for the industries. It is one of the very good alternative, but there are still a lot of research we need around the biofuel, because again, now what we just saw, that we need to see the all the factors which are getting going to get affected because of the biofuel. For example, bioethanol, usually it should be made from the agriculture waste, but there are news or there are certain informations which are being given as that even the people are industrial people are directly using rice uh, as the feed for the biofuel production. So biofuel can be a very good alternative, but again, India needs a lot of research around it, and uh, I guess if we invest enough in our research and development, I don't think it is going to cause effect on our GDP. Rather, it is going to contribute towards GDP in long run. So, uh, okay, so there is one question that will the impact of air pollution be in different levels depending on caste, class, gender, race, etc.? Are the harmful effects of global warming an intersectional issue? So okay, this question is a bit different, but I don't think so, because everyone is made from the similar like structure. Our different organs work in a similar way, so it is not going to affect based on the caste, gender. Everyone is, the only thing is some adaptive capacity. So many at times people are allergic, or like they show the response in a very lower concentration, and sometimes they have more tolerance, and sometimes they actually show the symptoms at a higher concentration. So only their own immunity, or somewhere you can call it in a simpler word, that their own immunity is going to define it, but it is not defined by the caste, class, or gender, or anything. It is not at all, or even the warming, global warming issue, it is not is based on this. So there's one question, how we could integrate climate smart agriculture with local air quality, air pollution, and link livelihood in village development. Air quality, pollution. Okay, climate smart agriculture. So when it comes to air quality specifically, there are a lot of alternatives in agriculture, especially when it comes to stubble burning. So the waste which is being generated from the agriculture field, it can be used in a multiple ways, like mushroom cultivation. It can be used in biorefineries. It can be used for different product making, and there are multiple handicrafts which are prepared using the agriculture. So in a way it can be used for the rural livelihood, but again initial investment is needed from the government, and then slowly it can be built. So when it comes to agriculture, yes, there are possible alternatives, but it needs initial investment. So there's one question, what are the reasons air pollution affected in public health, and why? Okay, so basically what I just mentioned is that PM 2.5, one of the most important most important factor which is affecting our health, and how it affects is through respiratory system, and the more smaller particles or gases, the more they actually enter in our blood system and causes different cardiovascular diseases or respiratory diseases. So it enters through, and definitely in areas, for example, Delhi has For PM 2.5 atmospheric threshold is given by WHO was around 15 microgram per meter cube, and Delhi's normal concentration comes around somewhere 150 microgram or more, even many at times. So when a person is exposed to around more than 10 or 15 times higher concentration, now imagine the exposure level, and then definitely it is going to affect your body, because it is entering in your system and reacting with your different organs. So there's one more question: is low cost and scalable solutions that can carried out through CSOs. Okay, CSOs. No. So here it's difficult to understand what is CSOs. Uh, I think I need to check more questions. Day-to-day pollution is increasing, but still government is not taking any lead decisions to bring it down. So we have to just think that will be the situation after 20 to 30 years after as well. So I won't say the government is not taking action. The government is taking action. But again, the system itself is not interconnected. The biggest challenge is system itself is not interconnected. There are rules for when it comes to emission standards from the vehicles. There are proper devices which should be installed at the chimneys of the industry, where those where those what devices are supposed to capture all the smoke and remove it from the smoke coming out and release the cleaner air, transparent air. But most of these industries, either they are not following the proper protocol, or there are loopholes in the audit system, or there are certain things which is happening at a very ground level, and these are the reasons we need people in the field of environment who can dedicate themselves by heart and work on ground to elevate the pollution issues. So there are stricter regulations from government side, but implementation side there are big loopholes. So yes, and one of the major sector in our, especially in India, is unorganized sector. Basically, the small scale industries or even the open waste burning, where you have no regulations. You can't capture a point to stop such kind of pollution. So even at a local scale, if we start to like make them aware, or even at local scale people start to follow, it will go in long way, and we don't need to wait for 20-30 years to get a pollution free air. We over the time, maybe we can achieve in next 5 to 10 years, because if other countries can, we can also. Around in 2017, China was the worst polluted country around the world. China, Beijing especially, used to come among the worst top polluted city, but now it is totally clean. So there, we need dedicated task force, of course, but at the same time, collective efforts are much needed. So there's a question. It's a skill based. How your MSc program make your student capable for long term career in climate sustainability? If yes, that what you provide in terms of a skill. So basically, when I say skill based, you get the hands on training for everything. For example, if I tell you that maybe deforestation is happening at a rapid scale, maybe you yourself, not maybe, this is happening in our courses, and I can say that in our masters students themselves, they can process the data, they can do their own data through our training, and over the time they can show that how much deforestation has happened or how much urbanization has happened through GIS system. Similarly, we have a lot of data which is present through, can be obtained through satellites, but individually it is difficult. We need a training for that. Similarly, understanding the energy transitions, at what scale we can transition into the renewable energy, and is it useful, or at what scale, or even if a water body is polluted, you yourself, we give you a skill so that you yourself can go and check the quality and understand it through the scientific background, as well as hands the masters in climate change, masters or bachelors in both the programs. Okay. So there's a question on low cost and scalable solution that can carried out through so civil society organizations. So definitely low cost sensors or the low cost monitors are these days very effective in understanding the pollution levels and how it can be brought down through small actions. So basically, if any locality, if we have a hyper local data, which is very very important in current scenario, especially when we want to work collectively for the air pollution, we need such kind of solutions, and low cost sensors are are going to contribute a lot in terms of citizen science, where we get the data from citizens and how small steps are helping to reduce the pollution, and how over time we can tackle such a big problem. So definitely local societies or whoever can monitor it or support it. So I think that's it. If is there any other question? So I think there are no more questions. So thank you so much for your attention and your interest in this topic. Especially, we need to collectively work towards this to safeguard our environment and our climate. So, and I look forward for more participation for our MSc program as well, which is a totally skill-based program and much more useful, especially in current situation, in current scenario, and in future as well. It has a really long career, because the issues which are emerging because of the greed of the humans, we need to solve it collectively. So thank you so much for your attention, and I will log out now. Thank you.